Executive Finance and Corporate Standing Committee meeting 21st of April, and welcome to staff and councillors. Today, of course, is a special day in that it is the Queen's actual birthday. Our CEO has informed me, so I'd like to pass on our sincere best wishes to Her Majesty, and also our condolences for the passing of His Royal Highness Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. Of course, our thoughts and prayers are with Her Majesty and also everyone in the royal family. Council, we do have, of course, this week was also a special week for our nation with Anzac Day upon us on Sunday. In my view, the most important day of the year, of course, in our nation's and military calendar, of course. And we have our red poppies throughout the council chamber, which is a lovely touch. So thank you all. And of course, we'll be discussing our engagement in Anzac Day later in the meeting, just to confirm the community that the councillors will be, I'll just touch on that slightly later, confirm the council will be actively involved, importantly, in Anzac Day on Sunday. The next item on the agenda is, I'll call the meeting, open at 9 a.m. The next item on the agenda is leave of absence. We do have a request for leave of absence from Councillor Potter, who is away today at an important appointment. So we accept that, Mr. CEO. We move that. I'll move that. A second to Councillor Duff. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Councillor Duff, the recognition of traditional owners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge country and the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka land, and acknowledge the elders, both past, present and emerging. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillors, you have the agenda in front of you and you've had time to look through that for today's committee meeting. Does any councillor have a conflict of interest which they wish to disclose? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, Councillor Shoemaker, informed this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to Item 9.1, release of restricted cash developer contributions. The nature of my interest is that this declarable conflict of interest arises because I live in the estate and have purchased vacant land from the developer. I propose to leave and stay away from the place where the meeting is being held while this matter is discussed and voted on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Duly accepted and noted. No other councillors with conflict of interest to disclose? Okay, let's move on to 5.1. Minutes of the previous committee meeting held on the 17th of March 2021 can be found at 5. Councillors, any questions, comments, concerns in relation to the minutes? I'll move that they be accepted as a record. No? Councillor Shoemaker, go ahead.
Yes, sorry, Mr. Mayor. I did have a question just in relation to the 6.8 Kingaroy Transformation Project petition. I just wanted to confirm with the CEO that we've written to the petitioners, and I also just wanted to raise the question, perhaps for GM Meehan, around when council will workshop that third-party independent report, the bellwether report again, for the KTP project.
Okay, happy to. Well, that's we could business. It's not a change. That's you don't want to change it. Okay, yeah. Can we deal with the minutes and then just deal with it as business arising?
Yeah, sure. No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Okay, so I'll move that the minutes. Thank you. Minutes be received. For seconder, thank you, Councillor Duff. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Councillor Shoemaker, please proceed.
Thank you. My apologies. Of course, process. Thank you for keeping us on track, CEO Mark. Yes, so I would like to ask those questions I've just raised. Have we written to the petitioners and offered an opportunity to meet with them? And just in relation to that third-party independent report, so wheels in motion around when council will meet and discuss that in a workshop.
Actually, happy to answer both, Councillor, if I may. Have we written to them? Not yet. We are searching because both of them are tied together. I've got a draft letter. It's one of 4. Actually, it's one of fess up because I'm hoping to have them all done by next week for the general. It's one of 4 outstanding council actions that I have. We are struggling to find dates. So councillors would have, just without going into emails this morning, looking at community engagement days and trying to pick some dates. It looked like we've settled on a community engagement day, which will be later in the month. but that frees up early in May if they're available, and we'll invite them in on or around that 10th of May. That's the intention. But yes, so that letter will go off now before the general next week, so we can get that going, if that helps.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. CEO.
And
Councillor?
the report, sorry, the question to GM Ian.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, just on the back of the CEO's comments, we've struggled to find time with the current schedule. We were looking to probably work through mid-May. Hopefully we'll aim for around that time, depending on where you're at with your budget workshops.
Thank you.
There are some additional items that I'll include at the report, which I'll talk through, which you won't have there, but they'll be included in the on screen, I believe, Linnell, in the agenda. Right. First of all, corporate services, and as a customer service-focused organisation, it's vitally important that we continue to foster an organisational culture dedicated to building stronger customer relations to enhance customer satisfaction. To assist our customers, Council has developed a customer service charter fact sheet, which outlines our commitment to our customers as well as our expectations when customers contact Council. The fact sheet is available on Council's website and at our customer service centres within the region. The organisational stats for the third quarter, being 1 January to 31 March, continue to identify the volume of activity happening within Council. During this period, Council issued 36,657 receipts, created 4,457 customer requests for service, processed 734 search requests, and answered 9,886 calls to the 4189 9100 number, with an average percentage of answered calls equating to 99.77. Further, Council received and sent 689,648 emails during the period 27 January to 31 March. This number includes emails inbound from and outbound to external sources, as well as emails sent and received within the organisation. For awareness, a more comprehensive list of statistics for the third quarter 2021 is attached to this report. People and Culture, Workplace Health and Safety, South Burnett Regional Council staff met with representatives of the Workplace Health and Safety Queensland, Workplace Health and Safety Queensland regarding ensuring our processes and practices are best practice. Council subsequently received an improvement notice from WHS Queensland in relation to the work environment traffic delineation observed by an inspector at the Alfred Street Kingaroy Transformation Project works. Council engaged relevant stakeholders and the provisions of the improvement notice were met fully and resulted in an improved environment for workers and the community. Operating hours, field staff will commence normal working hours from Tuesday the 27th of April from 6:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. This is to ensure that staff health and wellbeing is being considered and generally staff aren't operating crews in the dark. Council will change to summer hours, 6 a.m. starts again in September 2021. Training in March, all coordinators, supervisors and team leaders attended a Pot of Gold session. Pot of Gold is the internal training program run to ensure staff remain up to date with their obligations in relation to workplace health and safety, industrial relations, governance and corporate responsibilities. Additionally, in conjunction with TAFE Queensland South Burnett campus, Council offered staff for the second time the opportunity to attend mental health first aid training, recognising that each year 1 in Australians will experience a mental illness. Many people are not knowledgeable or confident to offer assistance. Physical first aid is accepted and widespread in our community. However, most do not cover mental health problems. Mental health first aid teaches staff the skills to help someone who they're concerned about, whether it be at home or at work or in the wider community. Communications and media. So in March, the Media and Communications team progressed 34 media releases, 13 media inquiries, 69 of Facebook posts, 14 LinkedIn posts, and 18 Instagram posts, 1 item of e-news, 5 printed advertisements, and 12 items of graphic design. A list of all media releases and inquiries, as well as statistics for March, available as an attachment to this report. Finance, at the end of March 2021, Council had a net operating profit of $8.379 million. While we are currently 75% through the financial year, recurrent revenue was sitting at 90% of budget and recurrent expenses were sitting at 73%. Both capital grants and operational grants are under 50% received at the end of March. However, the next few months will see both of these increase to be in line with the budgeted figures by the end of June 2021. Council's cash and cash equivalents at the end of March amounted to $49.054 million, with $22.289 million of this being restricted and the remaining $26.765 million classed as free cash. This high cash balance is largely attributed to the discount period for the 6-monthly rating period having ended in March. Council's capital works program at the end of March saw $28.315 million of the $38.529 million budget being committed or spent, which equates to 73.5% of the total capital budget. Of the $28.315 million, almost $20.465 million has been spent, and the remaining is sitting as committed. Finance have been working closely with all departments to determine any debtors that need to go to debt collection or to be written off as a bad debt. The 21-22 budget is also continuing to be developed, ready for adoption in late June 2021. At this stage, Council is forecasting a $4.56 million operational deficit for this financial year. This will give an accumulated operating deficit for the 19-20 and 2021 years of $6.947 million. Out of the $49.054 million cash and cash equivalents held by Council at the end of March 2021, $41.476 million was sitting with QTC and $7.553 million was being held in Council's Commonwealth Bank accounts. The remaining $25,000 largely consisted of accrued interest and other small cash float reserves. Council is currently predicting that the cash balance at the end of June 2021 should be approximately $36 million, which is slightly higher than the third quarter forecast balance of $35.6 million. Finance are currently conducting a fourth quarter review, and the expected cash position for the end of June 2021 will be updated in line with that review. The cash balance will continue to be closely monitored over the next few months and will be heavily dependent on the actual capital expenditure spent this year, as well as timing of grant funds received. Council's borrowings at the end of March amounted to $33.172 million, of which $2.878 million is considered current and the remaining $30.294 million is non-current. Rates, the outstanding rates balance at the end of March was just over $7.6 million, and the number of properties with rates in arrears was 2,665. It's important to note that both figures were the lowest that they have been for the March period since 2016, with a number of factors creating this favourable outcome. The number of rate searches continue to be relatively high as the South Bennett continues to have a surge in the number of properties being sold. Rates discounts for the 6-month period has recently concluded, with the first rates reminder notices going out just after Easter. Letters were sent to property owners affected by Council's proposed changes to sewerage charges, with a handful of responses for feedback having been received so far. Sale of land warning letters have also been issued to property owners with 3+ years outstanding on their rates, with a handful of property owners having contacted Council already. During April, the rates team will review all rate arrangements to ensure payments are up to date and will follow up on any property owners who are behind. ICT Business Systems Update. Council hosted the official launch of its major business transformation project, T2, on Thursday the 8th of April 2021. The launch was attended by approximately 80 staff, the Mayor and councillors, along with special guests Ben Malpass, Lee Wilson and Alina Radbone from Technology One. Manager ICT Anthony Bills and Project Lead Michaela Drew provide information on the project's objective and approach. Project T2's objective is to make the most of Council's investment in our Technology One software and SaaS hosting platform, and therefore to improve Council's overall efficiency and service delivery to the South Burnett region. T2 is the overarching project which defines how each of the business improvement projects to be addressed will be governed and approached. This will be achieved through a primary focus on understanding Council's business needs and then understanding how best to facilitate delivery of those outcomes through Council's corporate software systems. During April and May, the planning and business analysis phase of 2 core projects will commence. There are a customer request effectiveness review project, which is project ID T2.6, and also a document management review project, project ID T2.7. Both of these projects are of significant size and concurrently are expected to take approximately 6 months to deliver. Committee, in relation to that, in addition to that, I just wanted to also commend Council at its March general meeting for the passing of a resolution which gives rise to the formation of a budget committee which will operate between April and June of this year, and will give the opportunity for the community to engage and view the council budget deliberations through live streaming and gallery attendance. That was resolved, of course, on the 24th of March at the March general meeting. And again, I would like to commend Council on the work that we are doing in opening up Council to greater transparency in our decision making. And of course, that transparency arises, the importance of such arises from both the Local Government Act. One of the 5 key principles, of course, in that Act is that we engage in meaningful community engagement. So that's a very important principle within the Act. And our own community engagement policy states that we engage the community through informing, seeking information from, and involving community members in the decision-making process, develop council skills and capacity to undertake effective community engagement based on the International Association of Public Participation, IAP2, Public Participation Spectrum. And in our policy, at item 4, the first 2 items of the IAP2 Public Participation Spectrum talk to, number 1, the public should have a say in decisions about actions that could affect their lives. Public participation includes the promise that the public's contribution will influence the decision. We then also have adopted in our policy the IAP's matrix, the table, and at item 2 in the matrix, the consult condition, we talk about 2-way communication as a participation goal to obtain public feedback about ideas on rationale, alternatives and proposals to inform decision making. The promise to the community under the consult criteria is that we will keep you informed, listen to you and acknowledge your concerns. We will provide feedback on how public input influenced the decision, and example techniques include focus groups, surveys, public meetings, feedback opportunities, informal consultations, and of course the consultation item in the matrix includes inform, consult, involve and collaborate. The definitions of community engagement is a broad term describing a variety of ways to communicate, consult, involve and encourage participation between community and council. Community engagement is about offering opportunities for people to influence what happens in the community through being active in informing decisions of council. The International Association of Public Participation does not refer to an actual definition of community engagement. Instead, it draws from a number of sources of global definitions which affirm that community engagement is critical to effective, transparent and accountable governance in the public, community and private sectors, and is recognised as a 2-way process, one by which the aspirations, concerns, needs and values of citizens and communities are incorporated at all levels and in all sectors of policy development, planning, decision-making, service delivery and assessment, and 2, by which governments and other business and civil society organisations involve citizens, clients, communities and other stakeholders in these processes. I'm proud to be part of a council that has such a robust policy and that is being consistently adopted. And again, I believe that the budget process that we're about to go through is another demonstration of council's commitment to that community engagement policy. That concludes my report, and I thereby move that that be received. Thank you. Okay, do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Questions, comments, councillors? Sorry, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to, I absolutely acknowledge what you've said about community engagement. I think it's fantastic that we've opened up council to the community in a big way by live streaming our committee meetings and also our council meetings. I also think that community engagement we went out to the community with the community plans and asked them what they wanted in each of the bigger communities and also the smaller communities. So my question is, where are we at with the community plans? Because I know we went out there and we talked to a lot of people, we got a lot of feedback, and we're approaching our budget deliberations. We're right into the middle of it. Where does that community plan and what the community wants sit with regards to our budget process? That's one. And I also just wanted to ask, just flag, and because I think it deserves comment, the fact that we have an operating deficit of 4.56 million will end this year, and then an accumulative operating deficit of 6.947. Just wanted to ask the General Manager of Finance perhaps to comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. If you don't mind, I'll just deal with the first question, Susan. So just in relation to the community plans and the work that we did there. So all of those documents that have been received now are currently held within executive services, and the staff have been working actively to compile all that, put it into a format that's going to summarise, I suppose, under the key categories, the feedback from each community, community by community, and that information will come back for a draft report to council within the next few months, within the next couple of months, with a view to progressing that over coming months.
Thank you.
Over to you, General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Duff. The deficit, as you said, is 4.6 million with the cumulative deficit of 6.9. It's largely driven by the increase in depreciation. So we are looking at strategies to decrease our deficit, and we're seriously in line with this next budget. We're doing everything we can to, like we said, look at strategies to try to decrease that deficit. So that will be in consultation with Council and the direction of Council.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your report. Certainly quite enlightening, and it's great to see. I think the team has been achieving some wonderful outcomes. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about those customer service statistics, and I wanted to acknowledge the work that's actually gone into bringing them to the table for council's discussion. 12 months ago we weren't seeing this level of detail, and it's great to see that progression and to really understand the inquiries that council is receiving from its customers. And I guess when we're coming into the budget discussions, that really does inform the kinds of resources that we're going to need across the organisation to meet those demands and challenges. I just had a couple of questions in relation to those statistics that you gave us. I was looking at the fact that 4,457 customer requests for service have been received in that first quarter. That is a massive number. And I'm probably just thinking around sustainability. I'm also thinking around, well, what's happening in our community? Why are we receiving so many phone calls with concerns? And when you look at some of these, I can see there's been an enormous number of inquiries around rates valuations, some 842, which is testament to that growth that we're seeing. But I'm just looking at other areas, in terms of we've received 412 inquiries still around our roads, and 220 for mowing, 117 for parks and gardens, and 66 for toilets. and another 474 just around water. So I think that shows, you know, in terms of we've had those conversations about our ageing network, and that really does show that these are high hitting priorities for our council. I wanted to ask, in terms of those inquiries, my concern is how often our technical staff are tied up dealing with inquiries, and is there, I probably just want to understand what's the process from customer service point of view. You know, is there opportunity for more of these calls to be answered in that first point of contact? And does our customer service team, and it's probably something that we need to unpack further, but the training, the information we're providing them, I know we're investing significantly in systems, so I expect to see there'll be some improvements in the results because of that. But I guess I'm just thinking that bigger picture, those customer service team, do they have the resources? Is there another parcel of work we need to consider in our operational plan around, you know, how we get that team really trained up to be dealing with maybe more of these inquiries in the first instance? I probably just want to have a conversation about that with you, GM Susan. Yep.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. And you have analysed those statistics very well, and they delivering these statistics at the moment are very manual and labour intensive until we do the full review on our business systems program. But we're happy to provide those. And as you've alluded to, the top 5 inquiries we have, there was like rates valuations, 842, water supply was 474, animals was 461, roads was 412, and buildings then 238. So, like I said, those really the top 4 are up there, and they are interrelated and connected there. But taking on board your inquiry about the first point of contact, over 80%, I believe, our calls are actioned at our point of contact through our business for our customer service team. They are very highly skilled, I must admit, but where they need the technical support, that's when they will put that through the technical officer. However, the customer service team are going well above and beyond virtually their pay rate or area of expertise in their first line there. So we are reviewing that process to say, no, where do we now send that to a technical officer? You know, they are doing land searches, they're providing a lot of that first impact or first contact information. And in that there is a risk, because it's like a GP, you have a general practitioner, but if you have something relating to your heart, you go to a specialist. And that's the same as customer contact. They have a general knowledge of council processes and procedures and information, but where they need to go that step further for that technical knowledge, they do pass it on. So that is all under review with our business processes, and also it's like resourcing, like you're saying, that if it is a property inquiry, and that the best place to go is to properties, and or roads. There, it is the best place to go is roads. Yeah. So has that answered?
Yeah, definitely. And I guess I was thinking about, that operating model going forward, and how we sustain these statistics and really set our team up for success. And, you're absolutely right in terms of our staff going above and beyond for some of these things, way beyond their position description. And I guess that's got me thinking when we talk about our structure and our strategy and our focus on the way forward being customer focused, around opportunities. And I'm sure this council will unpack that, for maybe different levels of customer contact officers or technical support in that area. So I'm mindful of how much time it would take to respond to 4,457 customer requests. So I think it's great that we're starting to get all of this knowledge, like all of this information in front of us, and that we are targeting, a sustainable strategy and way of operating moving forward. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Sorry, I did have one more question. Just in relation to the media releases, probably a question for CEO Mark. I know I've talked a lot about communication strategy and around providing, you know, a story. And I see a lot of the media releases here are for, you know, basic information and updates. And I guess I just wanted to ask CEO Mark, I know his team's been working on a communication strategy, and I just wondered if there was some update he may be able to give us about that.
Thanks, Councillor. If I can digress to your first question as well, just on a very broad, I've said it several times and I'll say it publicly for a long time. We have an exceptionally good organisation with good people, and this is a good council. And these numbers are just, and the really refreshing and pleasing thing for me to see is it is a busy organisation. It is no longer a small country council. Amalgamation, whether people believe in it or not, has brought that to the point that we are now. We're 12, 13 years into the process, and some of what we're seeing is growing pains. And as it continues to develop, we're a $60+ million budget, capital. We're becoming, and very quickly now, a very complex organisation that will continue to process. The wonderful thing about it is without much in the increase, actually numbers have been pretty static over a long period of time, over the decade. Actually, and quite often it's less. We're processing more information and more requests now with the same people than we did in the past. So, which is a real credit to the staff involved, and I really appreciate the question. Communication strategy, it's just, it's a work in progress. A lot of the communications is the old good news story with the picture. We get out what we can. We put through a lot of information. A lot of the day-to-day grind does run over the top of us as far as this space. We're starting to now, there's reports today with the corp plan and the third quarter operational review will be to the general next week, I think, and it talks a little about the communication strategy. It is definitely an area that we need to continue to work on. We don't, how do I put it? It's not that it's been offered, but nor should there be any further resourcing in this space. It is what we've got at the moment, and how to continue to coordinate that so we get content that's not only useful, because we have the government and the governance side of things to put out there, which is very dry and not terribly exciting, but also then getting that other information out there. And I'm hoping that this year, particularly now with the media officer on deck, as we continue to train and develop, that this will just be a process of continuous improvement, if that helps.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr CEO and General Manager. Just wanted to put one question to the General Manager's quick update. How are we tracking from a finance point of view in relation to the W4Q round 4, $3.3 million? Will we still on track to complete projects, expend those funds by the due date?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, no, we believe we're still on track. We've got a large number of projects that have been completed in the final sort of 2 months of this. So we've got, say with our building projects, a number of those have all been awarded. So we're just relying on the contractors delivering those at the moment. So yeah, it's really waiting for materials and contracts to be delivered, but everything's been awarded to complete the program.
Thank you, General Manager. Could also just, in concluding here, speaking to this matter, just wanted to acknowledge the work that our senior executive team have done under the leadership of our CEO in facilitating the implementation of initiatives which are enhancing Council's openness and transparency in our decision-making to the community. None of these would have happened in terms of our standing committees, our budget committees, our live streaming, without the tremendous work that our senior executive team have done under some sterling leadership from our CEO. And I think to a large extent we are becoming a model council Our CEO was invited to speak to the CCC recently about governance, and I think that's a real feather in his cap and a recognition of the work that he's been doing previously and during your time here at the council, CEO, Mr. CEO Marks. I'd like to acknowledge that and thank you sincerely for the tremendous work you do, because I know you put your heart and soul into this organisation. So my sincere thanks on behalf of council, our sincere thanks for the wonderful work you've done. Yeah. Okay. Right, councillors, if there's no more comments or questions, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Item 6.2 is adoption of the South Bennett Regional Council revenue
Excuse me,
policy.
Mr. Mayor.
Sorry?
I'd like to move a motion off the floor, please. Yes?
Yes, proceed, Councillor Schumacher.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move a motion that council's media policy be circulated amongst councillors for review and discussion at the May Exec and Finance Standing Committee. Sorry, Corporate. Finance and Corporate Standing Committee. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Henshin, thank you. Okay, councillors wishing to speak for or against. Councillor, did you want to open up speaking to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just think, the past 12 months, you're absolutely right when it comes to community engagement policy. I think the role of councillors in terms of the information that we provide to our constituents and the role of the media in informing our community is really important. And I think it's timely. I know it's not long been tabled. I understand you, Mr. Mayor, are the spokesperson for council, but as a councillor, I feel that there's very little opportunity for me to actually speak openly to the public. And so I would like to review that policy and see in conversation with my colleagues what the opportunities may be for us as a council. I think our reputation is really important. I think there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes that I understand, Mr. Mayor, you've got a giant job, and often I don't feel as a councillor we can support you enough in actually speaking to some of that work that is happening. So I have some ideas about the policy. I'm sure some of my fellow colleagues have. I know Councillor Jones has raised this before. Certainly, I just think it's important that we take another look at it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors? Councillor Duff.
Yeah, I'm happy to have a look at it, but I do think that we, over a long period, we've worked out that the best way to actually have the communication is to keep it so that we're all on the consistent page. And the concern is if councillors go out and talk, without it going through the mayor, you can get some different, it can get sort of, we're not putting out a consistent message, and I think that over time that's why we have come to the conclusion that that's the best way forward from experience, because it's you can have, we're probably a good council, but you can have councillors that are rebel councillors, and we've seen that in the past, that they go out and they speak to the media on issues and cause all sorts of concerns, and they appear to be the voice of council, but because they're a councillor, people take a lot of notice of them, but they're actually just putting forward their individual views. So I think we just have to be careful about how we manage that messaging, and also the fact that I believe that these committee meetings are where the councillors have the opportunity in front of the public to declare their hand, to say what they think, to stand up for what they believe in. And I think that this is how we've opened it up for councillors to actually, and if the media is sitting here, and I know that they listen to the live stream, that if you have an issue or something that you want to raise in this forum, well, there's your opportunity to engage with the public and the media. So that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, any other councillors? We'll give you a right of reply at the end, Councillor Schumacher. Other councillors wishing to speak to the matter? Councillor Jones?
Yes, thank you. Take on Councillor Duff's support points there, but I fully endorse what Councillor Shoemaker said. I think the councillors need to be able to speak to the media when asked or approached. So I'm more than happy to support this motion and have further discussion on it.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Jones. If no other councillor wishes to speak, I might just add a few comments myself and then give you the right of reply. So absolutely welcome the opportunity to review this policy. I think it's always good governance to consistently review all policies of council. This policy was designed and implemented under the previous council, I believe, under Mayor Keith Campbell's leadership, as a mechanism for providing I suppose, a proper process around channeling any statements to the media through the media team, through the Office of the Mayor and the Office of the CEO. And I imagine that the former council was trying to create consistency of messaging and making sure that there were no statements going out that were going to cause any detriment to council. And so hence putting that rigorous process around it. I would also just highlight that I've been very, I must say, I must acknowledge the work that the media team have done. We get many requests from the media in, and sometimes the media raise issues that they're not responded to quickly enough. But what the media don't always understand is that we're getting multiple requests from a number of different agencies, not just that one local paper or the one radio station or the one online platform. We get multiple requests. So our media team work very hard to not just to punch out a number of media releases on a whole range of topics, but to respond to the inquiries that come through. Almost all the statements that go out from myself go through the Office of the CEO, are checked and signed by the CEO as well, so that he has that governance over that consistent message, and also making sure that the messages we're sending out are going to be in accordance with the legislative and regulatory requirements as to councils, us not tripping over ourselves as well. There has, councillors, I did email you all, offering you the opportunity to speak on Monday mornings on radio. I've only received one response from Councillor Duff. No other councillor has responded to that email, so I would again. Happy to send that again, inviting you all to join me on Monday mornings. Please come forward and email me if you have topics you'd like to speak about. On Crow FM or on 4SB on a Monday morning, that offer still stands. I'd encourage you to take that up. Under our policy, councillors, I would also highlight that you do have an opportunity to speak to the press, to make statements. I know Councillor Potter and Councillor Shoemaker have received inquiries, and the responses that were provided were issued to the media, pretty well unedited, I believe, by the staff. So that demonstrates there is a mechanism. If you'd like to make a statement to the media councillors, please feel free, in accordance with our policy, to send that through to the media team, and I'm sure that our CEO and his team will have that processed appropriately, and you'll be given every fair opportunity to make statements to the media team. So there is no one's hamstrung in terms of making statements to the media. It just means that we all, including myself, have to work through the media team. Okay, but having said that, as I said, with all policies, welcome the review of such, and I'm happy to support this motion. Thank you. Councillor Shoemaker, for right of reply. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, I understand and respect both yours and Councillor Duff's views in regards to this matter. For me, it's really, I think, the last 12 months, we've come up to our anniversary, can't believe it. We've learned a lot, we've grown a lot, and I think we're much clearer in our strategy and our roles as elected representatives. And I feel I do have a voice. I feel it's timely to review that policy because I think I can contribute more to council's reputation and its communicating of our key messages and the work that we're doing. And my intent may not be to change the policy in any way. I think the mechanics, the process of having a third party review your comment is always good. However, I do think it's timely. It's been 12 months. I think it is timely for us all to have a look at it, to think about it. Certainly, I respect your views, Councillor Duff. It's certainly not about our personal views. I've learned that as a councillor. It's not about your personal views. It's about the views of this council and the work that we've been doing and respecting the decisions of council. So I acknowledge that. And I acknowledge your comments, Mr. Mayor. You've consistently talked about opening up the doors of council. Absolutely. I think it's a great thing that this council's been working in that space. I agree in terms of transparency and our roles as elected representatives in representing our community. Your Monday morning roster, thank you for the email. My apologies for missing that. I know we did go through a really scheduled process in that first instance, and then they were put on hold. So it's good to hear that we can now come back to you and allocate some time. Certainly, that's a great outcome. But I thank you for the opportunity to review this policy. I think it'll be a good outcome for council. Thank you.
Okay, councillors, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Rightio. So we'll now move on to 6.2, adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Revenue Policy 2021-2022, statutory 005. The report can be found at 31. And Mr. CEO, I might get you, or General Manager, one of you. Yep, GM, would you like to lead us into that? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The revenue policy is an annual policy to be adopted. It's by legislation. The revenue policy forms part of the council's budgets each year. So in essence, it's a statement outlining the strategic policy position of council in relation to revenue measures to be adopted in the budget. So it's more of a motherhood or a policy allowing us for discounts and that for the budget, but the actual procedure or the document that council does adopt at its budget meeting is our revenue statement, and the statement defines all of our fees and charges and our discounts and our concessions. So this is a requirement under the Act that the revenue policy is adopted in line with us developing our budget.
Thank you, General Manager. Recommendation is that the committee recommends to council that the South Burnett Regional Council Revenue Policy 2021-2022, statutory 005, be adopted as presented in accordance with section 193 of the Local Government Regulation 2012. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Frola, for seconder. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did look over this policy very carefully because I understand it's very important. This really is the function that allows us to levy rates. So it's a very important policy. I'd probably encourage our community to take a look at the policy. I think, a lot of the rhetoric around rates can often be negative and, let's be honest, we all pay rates. I think there is essence of this policy, strategies in here that I'd like to highlight for the community that council has adopted to try and find the most equitable way to levy rates. There's one in here that talks about, council recognises that significant valuation fluctuations may have an adverse effect on customers. Council considers that this impact should be smoothed so that the impact in any 1 year is reduced. There's another statement here. Provided, however, that where council considers moving to full cost recovery for a particular service may cause undue hardship, council will phase in the full cost recovery over a period. There's also a few other processes, a few other highlights in the policy that I just think it's important for our community to understand that our council does work really hard in terms of finding the ways it can levy rates in ways that don't impact our ratepayers. And I know that's in the forefront of every one of our minds as we go into this budget process. How do we do this in a fair and equitable way, and how do we minimise the adverse impacts on our ratepayers? So I think the policy is really good. I've reviewed it closely, and at this point I have no changes to the policy.
Okay, all the councillors, so put it to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you all. Right, 6.3, independent accounting analysis at 40. And the recommendation is that the independent accounting analysis be taken off the table. So I would hereby move that in the first instance. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. The matter is now back on the table. I'd like to put forward a motion that, Mr. CEO, if I could, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, so this one was already, just procedurally, this one was already moved and it's not to stop anything else. So council had started it, so the procedural tabling motion lifts it from the floor. So the one that's moved has to be dealt with. Now, whether it's withdrawn, passed, amended, but it's what you've got, and so if you've got an amendment to it, yeah, that would be, so, yeah, so.
I
again,
think,
yeah.
thanks, Mr. Sar. You're of course, always worth your weight in gold. I'll now, I'll look to amend it, Linnell, and I'll go slowly here with you. I'd like to amend the motion that I moved at the previous meeting that's now back on the table, that South Bennett Regional Council engage an independent, appropriately qualified person/organisation to conduct an independent accounting analysis and provide a report with strategy options to transition the budget into surplus by 2023/2024, with the work to commence in July 2021, with a view to completing such and providing report to Council by 30 June 2022, full stop. Uh, 30 June 2022. Full stop, that's it. Thanks, Linnell. Mr. CEO, I might just call on you for comment in relation to the construct of the motion. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a significant amendment. I mean, it's fine. It's probably best to Linnell, we've got the original still you can go back to, can't you? It's probably best to deal with it as a formal amendment, Mr. Mayor. And then, so if you've moved it as an amendment, it would just be a seconder. The amendment would be debated, and then if it's passed, it then becomes the resolution. Yes, yeah. I would think you would be best process this time. Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. So I'll now move that amendment. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duff, thank you. Okay, councillors, councillors wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I just probably have a couple of questions, just trying to understand your intent. So certainly, just want to confirm, we are talking about the amendment you just put forward, yes? Yep. I would like to better understand, based on the discussions we've had, and certainly a surplus is always this council's view and vision, and I understand that in some ways, you know, the work that we're doing now, we may not necessarily see the fruits of that labour, the fruits of our hard decisions that we will have to make. I probably think, you know, some of the work that we will have to do these next 2 years I see as being really gritty. You know, we've got a lot of assets, we've got a lot of discussions to be had, and I know the next 2 years is going to take a hell of a lot of effort. I just want to understand, when you talk about a surplus, I want to understand more about your view or vision for our budget from where it is now to that surplus point.
Thanks. Good question, councillor. As one councillor, my view or vision to answer your question, in accordance with this amendment, would be to see this council transition to surplus by the final budget that we adopt in our 4-year term, as indicated there. Our surplus accumulation over the last 2 years is just under $7 million. We're currently facing potentially an $8 million deficit, $7 million the last 2 years. We're currently facing a first draft of OPEX budgets that have come forward at first draft. I say they are only first draft, so I will qualify my statement by saying that there's a lot of work to be done, that's only the starting point. We haven't taken into consideration rises in revenue or adjustments to operational expenditure that may come out of further discussions over the course of those budget committee meetings. But at first draft, we have worst case scenario, an $8 million deficit. Now that would of course give us $15 million worth of accumulated deficits over 3 years. And I think it would be challenging in the 3rd year of our term to come out of deficit into surplus. If we were, for example, to get that deficit back to $4 million, well, then that reduces to $11 million. If we have another $4 million deficit in year 3 of our term, then we'll still have, over that course of that 4 years, $15 million worth of deficits. So my view or vision is that we could, I suppose, we could change tack as an organisation in terms of how we've been tracking with these deficits, where we're accumulating deficits each year. I've said it before and I'll say it again, and I know that some may see it as me fear-mongering, but let me assure you that I'm not. I don't make statements in this chamber lightly. That could reflect poorly on me as a councillor or on my professional qualifications or reputation. So when I say make statements, I do think them through carefully. And I will make the statement that I am extremely concerned about the fact that we're running deficits every year. I've been tonight invited to the North Burnett Regional Council to what they're promoting as a series of sessions they're running across their region called Between a Rock and a Hard Place. And if you read the flyer that they've distributed to their community, it talks about some tough decisions that they're having to make, sharing that with the community around pools, library, roads, and the retention or possibly not otherwise of staff. Their council has faced similar challenges to us in running deficits for a number of years on the basis of their small rate base and their significant cost to service what is such a large area. So I'm not certainly making any assertions as to the performance of that council, but they've faced a really tough job. We face a really tough job. I would like to think that we can, with some independent advice and financial advice from people who are appropriately qualified, undertake a high-level analysis of our budget and provide strategies and assistance to council as to how we could transition out of deficit into surplus over the course of the next 2 budgets, so that by the 4th year of our term we can deliver to the community at least a break-even budget. I'd be happy to be $1 in surplus, to be quite frank. So that's my view and vision for this process. I think it would be valuable to have some external expertise come in, a set of eyes looking outside in. Perhaps it's had experience in this space with other councils to give us the advice. And this is certainly no reflection on the capabilities or competence of our general manager and our staff. But sometimes an external set of eyes can identify strategies, options, solutions for us that we may not see ourselves, and provide us that independence in terms of the decision-making, independent guidance as to decision-making that we would be facing over the next two budgets after this one. So that's effectively the view or the vision. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm absolutely a believer in bringing outside in advice into the chamber, and I'm quite happy to go down the track of an independent accounting analysis. I would want to make sure that that works in with our asset management plans, existing asset management plans, or probably understand a little bit more about, do we use those existing asset management plans as sort of like a foundation for this work, I guess, is one of the questions that I have.
Yeah, happy to answer that question. Thanks, councillor. So obviously the work that would be done would be very strategic in nature and would take to account all of the planning processes that council has. Asset management plans are one part of that. And I would have thought that that would well and truly fit inside the scope of the assignment, to review the asset management plans, to work through those with the relevant general managers, to look at a whole range of issues across council's asset and financial management platforms. So it would be very comprehensive and very broad, I would suggest, and certainly not leaving any big rocks unturned, such as asset management plans, yeah.
And just probably my final question, as I said, I'm fully supportive of the independent accounting analysis, and certainly I think, you know, information is power. It would be good to have that third-party review, sure. Probably my concern is about the statement in your recommendation around transitioning the budget into surplus. Are we probably seeking CEO Mark's advice here from a procedural point of view? Are we making a political promise here on something that we know is going to be very difficult to achieve? I would like that before I make any decision about this recommendation.
Thanks, councillor. Okay, there's a couple of procedural bits that we probably missed in the first one, is if the mayor's consent that the committee recommends to council, because this meeting doesn't carry the delegation, so that would come back on procedurally. The other aspect to it is that, again, certainly not getting into the debate of it, but if it would give, with the mayor's consent, with the work to commence in July 2021, this would require a brief or a request for quotation at the very minimal, or a request for a tender. So that the work to commence with the request for tender being brought to the July 21 Standing Committee, and that would give council then it would almost become a staged approach. So if the request for tender before it goes out would come back, and that would be another governance check on this going forward to make sure it aligns with, and again, I'm not saying it's not, but it just would assist with the mechanics of it. And so that request for tender will come back. Council can, at the Standing Committee, council could then be in total agreement of what it's trying to achieve with this. The rest of the recommendation resolution is fine from mine. It's if that's what council would like this report. So it doesn't preempt what the report would find. It says the report may come back and say, no, you got no hope, which I don't think it would, but you got no hope, or you will have to do this to achieve that. I'm taking that's where you're going. So if we added in there, Mayor, with your consent, with work to commence by a request for tender to be presented to the July Standing Committee, and then that way we can just springboard it. So start it in July, have a look at the tender. We can get the draft tender documents together for the July meeting. Anyway, it's an offer. Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Sell. I'm very happy with that. I think that works for your process point of view. Happy to have that change there, Linnell. Thank you. Councillor Duff, are you comfortable with that change to the proposed amendment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we were amalgamated, we actually inherited a $6 million operating deficit, and we were actually under financial watch. So through that first term of council, we had someone from, was it QTC, looking over us. So I'm waving a red flag now. I mentioned that before, the operating deficit, 4.56 million up to 6.947. We were under financial watch given that situation. So I think we need to have I'm really keen on this resolution to try and get an independent set of eyes over our whole organisation to see if we can find other ways to address the situation, because I want to be ahead of the game, and I think we need to, just if we continue down the same path, we're going to get ourselves into a similar situation as to where we were when we first were amalgamated. So keen to have this recommendation supported. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Other councillors? Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to clarify, and on the request for a tender to be presented, fully supportive of that, but just for clarity within the chambers and the public, that council has the ability to not necessarily accept any tender. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of questions. So this proposed amendment is for the whole of the organisation. What are we hoping to achieve? Is this to, are we hoping for an increase or a decrease in the valuations and the analysis and all that sort of stuff? Mark sort of half touched on my concerns in regards to the cost of for the want of a better word, consultant, taken in mind the conversation we had yesterday and how we're drilling down on consultants and all that sort of stuff and the costs of this, that the effect on our budget and all that sort of stuff, and here we are. So I'm glad to see that bit was added in, and I have real concerns about this, in particular with the roads, and I use Councillor Duff's comment there that this could, we don't want to go back to amalgamation. Well, I don't want to go back on the roads. If the roads information comes back, I want to put it out there that I'm going to fight very strong and very hard to maintain the service level that we've worked our butts off for the last 2 or 3 years since 2016. And if this was to show up that we could increase the whole of use of life and all that sort of stuff and adjust the service levels and all that on the roads, I have serious concerns. And that's just, I'm speaking about that because it's in my portfolio, obviously, but I have concerns about what this could possibly have and on the effect of the overall operations of council. And I'm, like I say, Councillor Shoemaker's touched on it. Yep, happy to have it. External set of eyes and all that sort of stuff, but I think it's quite ironic that yesterday we had a serious conversation around the cost of consultants and trying to reduce that, and I'd really like to take on Councillor Henson's point there where he said that we do not have to accept or do anything, we just ask for quotes. I'm fine with that as long as it's quotes and it's brought back to council for a decision on whether we progress. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Jones. Any other councillors? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Yes, Mr Mayor, so as part of that request for tender process, I imagine our finance team will work hard on a scope. I probably just wanted to understand from GM Susan's point of view, the team's thoughts, and we did table this at the last committee meeting, so just if there's any further information that council should know about this this recommendation before we go to the vote.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. No, I don't have any comment. I guess listening to the Mayor to see what he wanted to achieve and that, I'm just a little bit confused about exactly what the scope would look like. Are you asking for a revaluation? Are you asking, I'm just a tad confused, and I guess I'd have to be directed by the Mayor or the CEO on where we're heading with that and whose area of responsibility would it be? Would it be the CEO or their sole CEO?
I'll help. I think if we're going to do upper scope in consultation with the Mayor, part of the thinking of bringing it back is that there will be a clear understanding by all councillors before the tender goes out that this is the scope. So with no background report behind it today, it's very difficult for any of us to. We'd be here for a long time talking about the detail in this. If again, right, wrong. Any independent analysis, a third-party review is always welcome. But we would want to be all clear on what the scope is, because there's no point doing it unless everyone's on the same page. So happy and appreciate the July start date, I really do. So we can draft up, get the scope together, come back, and then table something that's there's a body report behind it, and so that it can be presented, and we just roll forward with it. there's a body of work there. Councillor Duff referred to Treasury. Treasury is always, they don't, since this one came back, actually, I was neglecting not mentioning before, they don't, it was raised at the last meeting, they don't necessarily do this as fee for service anymore, but I would expect that we would put a call into them and ask them, if we go out to the open market, you don't know what's out there. So there might be some gems hidden out there as far as companies that do this, but certainly there would be a conversation with Treasury too before that report came back, to make sure that it's as good as we can make it. Probably bad English, but yeah, making sure it's a really good scope. Yeah.
Thanks, Mr CEO. Perhaps just to assist councillors in your decision making here, I suppose what I'm trying to achieve is that this has a broad scope, that over a 12-month period we engage an independent organisation or person to work through our revenue statement, our expenditure, to do a full analysis of our expenditure across council, to couple that with our asset management plans. So it would be very broad. The intention is to work with our staff and our council to put forward recommendation strategies that we could consider that we may not ourselves have identified or considered in that very complete analysis. And I suppose what I'm trying to achieve here in layman's terms is to get on the front foot with this. Now, if we keep tracking at 4.5 a year, we'll accumulate $18 million worth of deficits. Councillors, that isn't paper. That's not paper entries. These aren't journals in a general ledger, councillors. This is unfunded depreciation. That means that we're not putting the money aside for sustainable management of our assets in the future. That means we've set back our renewals, our future sustainability by $8 million under our term of council. And Councillor Jones, I'm hearing your statement about you're not prepared to compromise on roads. Well, let me assure you, I'm not prepared to sit here as an elected mayor, elected councillor, and a qualified accountant, and on my watch this council wash away $18 million worth of future renewal and sustainability funding that the next council has to inherit and try to deal with. So this is a very serious matter. If this council feels that amongst the people in this room today and our finance staff, you have the capability, you have the expertise to deal with that potential $18 million worth of deficits, I'm happy to retract the motion and not support it. But at this point in time, I'm struggling to find solutions to a $4.5 million deficit. If we get the $8 million current deficit down to that, I think we'll be doing well. And if we track as we're currently tracking and hold our own, $18 million over 4 years, I'm sorry, council, I'm not prepared to leave that legacy. It's not why I ran for council. And when I was elected by the community here, I was given a mandate to deal with to improve council's financial management. That was made very clear to me by the electorate. I campaigned on that I would go hard on managing finances and bringing council out of deficit. I actually said that, and I was given that mandate through the election, and I'm going to stay committed to my promise to the people. If you can support me in working to achieve that with your staff, Susan, and with this council, I don't want to incur consultants' fees either. But at this point in time, I'm not confident that we have the answers to bring us out of deficit. And I'd much prefer to leave a $10 or $12 million deficit accumulation over 4 years than an $18 million one at this point in time. So for me, it's really as simple as that. I'm very passionate, very committed about the financial sustainability of this council moving forward, and also about the limited revenue raising capacity we've got and the burden that we put on our ratepayers when we increase rates across what is a fairly... We've got a struggling community. We've got a lot of pensioners, a lot of people on low socioeconomic situations, farmers who have been battling drought for how many years now. To quote John Perry, we are at the higher end of rating compared to other regional councils. We're certainly, from my analysis, that's correct. And so it's challenging for us. You know, we look at North Burnett and the situation they're in now. I don't want to see us in that situation in 2 or 3 years' time. I want to get on the front foot and deal with this now and put mechanisms in place to deal with it now. I don't want to be in the situation that Gympie are in. Had they did a review at the end of their 4-year term, the new council did it, and look what the CPA of Australia found. It went all over the media, and they're now having to make some massive decisions. I don't want us to have to do that. I would like to maintain my commitment to every staff member that you won't lose your job under my watch. And at the moment, I'm really frightened about being in the position that North Burnett and Gympie are in, and that's why I'm bringing this to the table. It's for no other reason than genuine, sincere concern for where our finances are tracking. So, look, I'll leave it at that. The suggested amendments there, I'll close with those comments and now put that, Mr CEO, to the vote. So the amendments there on the table, those in favour? Okay, carried. Sorry, those against? Okay, those in favour? Sorry, Councillor Shoemaker, Councillor Fryloff, Councillor Duff and Councillor Otto. Those against, Councillor Jones and Councillor Henshin. So, Mr CEO, we've now got the amendment on the table. Against was Jones and Henshin. So, Mr CEO, do we now go through again and move?
Mr. Mayor, the amendment becomes the resolution. So I would just, given it's been debated, it's opportunity for final drinks on the discussion. So, yeah, and then the amended resolution gets put to the vote.
Okay, the amended resolutions there. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just, in regards to some of the comments that you've made, I think it's really important to highlight that you are a member of a team, and this team is very much financial sustainability. We are elected representatives. We have all taken an oath under the Local Government Act to adhere to the principles of financial sustainability, and I do see that as a key priority for every one of us, not just yourself, Mr. Mayor. It's a team effort. There's going to be a hell of a lot of work to be done in the next 2 years, and I absolutely mean it when it comes to, I'm signing up for the grit and the difficult decisions and the tough conversations we're going to have with our community, and I think the strength of this team through that process will be really important because the pressure from our community, the community expectations, you know, they're there. We all campaigned, certainly there, and it's our role as leaders, I think, to work with our team and to find the best options for our future. So I agree with you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm certainly signing up for the challenge.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. And look, you're really endorsing what I'm saying here, and that is that give our team the opportunity to have some independent support come back. And it may be that other councillors that campaigned on bringing the budget back into surplus. I'm not sure. I can't speak for other councillors. I certainly campaigned on that, and that's all the point I was making. Certainly not saying that this is my responsibility or my role. Under the new Act, it's the council's budget. It's no longer the mayor's budget. Fully acknowledge that. As the finance portfolio holder, though, I do accept some responsibility, as Councillor Jones does for roads, for my portfolio, and as I know as you would for economic development. So I speak also as the finance portfolio holder, but I would certainly acknowledge that it's going to have to be a team effort for all of us to work together to address this. All I'm seeking to do here is provide the team, the council team, with some additional support in terms of strategies and recommendations that may help us in dealing with this matter. But thank you, absolutely 100%. It's a team effort for sure. Councillor Henshin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm supportive of this to the point when we request the tender process. My concern is we're in the next couple of months of bringing down our budget, and this is going to be presented in July 2021, which we have no idea where this financially is going to go. So that is one of my concerns. Being presented in the July 2021 Standing Committee meeting when we've got a budget to bring down in the next 2 months, and somehow now how do we prepare for that?
Sorry, was that a question, Councillor Henshin?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, so can I just get you to clarify your question again? I'm not sure. I just didn't understand your question, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify, my concern is in relation to a tender being requested for the July 2021 Standing Committee meeting, and we're in the process of bringing down a budget, but this is not, we haven't, how are we going to incorporate that within our budget talks in the next couple of months when it's July, it's going to be tabled with tender processes?
Yeah, I might go to Mr CEO on that one, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, councillor. Good question. The clarification is we're talking about the request for tender is the scope. So a draft scope will be knocked up and that'll come back to July. It won't go out to tender. These are long processes, and particularly the nature of the report, which is any. So why I suggested tender, it'd be best to do it in a formal tender process, dependent on, it won't hit the value threshold, I wouldn't think. But the scope will come back in July. There'll be agreement on scope. Scope will go, the tender process will go out, it'll be 6 weeks. It'll then come back. So by the time the decision point is made, it'll be probably first quarter already. So it'll come back as part of that time. So July, yeah, generally about 6 weeks tender. Evaluations come back, so it'll be good 2 months, 3 months into the new financial year by the time the actual cost and the decision point comes back for awarding the tender.
Thank you, Mr CEO and Mr Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Thanks, Mr CEO. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't respond to those comments that were made earlier. I take on Councillor Shoemaker's view and your view. I am fully committed to the financial situation of this council and moving forward. Under no circumstances would I operate any differently. No one in this room, in this chamber, can do it on their own. It's a team. My other question, and I want to point out, you want to do an asset valuation, a re-asset valuation. Now, has this council not previously said that we need to look heavily at our assets? And do we need to cut them? Do we need to get rid of assets? So are we not better off looking at that assets register first and discussing that and having those hard conversations that we're going to have before we get the asset valuation? Because if we go ahead and get the asset valuation, before we have the conversations around cutting our assets, are we not wasting money?
Thanks, councillor Jones. I think your question goes to the scope of the work. That will need to be considered by council as part of the tender being prepared. Sorry, councillor? Yep, okay. So that would go to the scope of the work. General Manager Meehan has put into his budget proposal for a comprehensive revaluation of the road assets. So he has already started to prepare for that across this next financial year, which would align with the timing of this process. I'm not suggesting that the independent advisor would do the asset management planning process or would do the valuation. That's not theirs. That won't be within their scope. That is not part of their role. It may be that they'll make recommendations in relation to that from a process point of view, but that was very much would be the role of the CEO and the general managers if they wish to proceed down that path. Buildings has been done recently. If we choose to do that again as a council, we would need to budget for that and go down that path. But as the general manager said, any significant changes to the valuation reports have to be done through a formal revaluation process, and that will involve getting consultants and staff to engage in that. So that deep level of detail, I'm not suggesting is in the scope of the work, and that's why I amended the motion. So there's no reference in there to revaluation of assets at this point in time.
So I guess then the question is, so when you say that surplus work to commence, request for tender, executive finance call, where is it? Independent accounting analysis, so to provide a report with strategic options to transition the budget into service. Where was I thought there was somewhere in there that we were looking at asset valuation, or is that in the other one? In the other one.
Not in the amended budget, councillor. Yeah. Not in the amended motion.
Yeah. Oh, yes, I still have, yeah, I think, anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Froloff.
Thank you, Mayor. Originally, when this came to the table for an independent accountant analysis, I was against it, but I am going to support it. But I want it known that it'd be nice to have a surplus, council to have a surplus. It would really be nice. So the thing is, I'm like to just put it out there that us and also the ratepayer out there have got to realise that we are going to make some tough decisions. And yes, rates could go up and all that, but also our assets and that. When this independent analysis comes back and says we've got to get rid of stuff, are the councils going to have the balls to do it? Because this is the thing, is the community wants the gold-plated stuff, and we go out there, we afford it, we do it like grading, mowing and all that. The ratepayer wants the best of everything, but they don't want to pay for it. So when we go say, Kathy, you like that, you do not like that word rationalise, but we might have to, some stuff. Are you going to stand out there and tell your community? Because I'll have to tell my community if we get rid of stuff, you want to have a surplus, you don't want your rates go up, then we've got to be tough and get rid of stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Other councillors? Okay, no, we'll put it to the vote, Mr CEO. Yep, that's the process. Okay, those in favour? Okay, we've got 4 in favour. Those against? Councillor Jones and Councillor Henson against. Thank you all. Okay, we'll just give Linnell, you right there, Linnell. We'll move on while you're doing that to item 6.4, adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Corporate Plan 21 to 26 at 41. Thank you, Mr CEO.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Now, this is for information today, so the formal report on the corporate plan will come back next week. So we've had the community consultation, actually going to where the community was worked, I think, way better. The markets and the different things. So we've had quite a deal of feedback. We've workshopped it. Today isn't the final. The document's still being, and why the whole document's not presented, it's still being not prettied up. I'm looking for a more sophisticated word, but it's being polished. Yeah, polished. Thank you. So this is the feedback we did get. I do get a little bit more from the mayor, which hasn't been incorporated in this. Councillor Duth responded, "Thank you very much." So we tried to pick those couple, the one typo in particular. I really appreciate it. So today, look, this is, I think we said last week, well, I'm sure we said last week, final drinks for preparation of the agenda is Thursday of this week. But if council notes the report today, if there is anything that's glaring, please let us know and we can amend it. Other than that, it goes to the general next week for final adoption. And yeah, I'm actually very pleased with how the documents come together.
Thanks, Mr CEO. And can I just say thank you and the senior executive team and the staff for the work that you've done in getting us to this point. It's a fair bit of work involved in putting together a new corporate plan for the next 5 years, and the community consultation, your work you've done is tremendous, engaging with council, giving us every opportunity to work and rework the documents, been much appreciated. Okay, council, it's certainly my pleasure to move that council note the proposed draft corporate plan 21 to 26 amendments for information. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duff, thank you. Councillors wishing to speak for or against, or speak to it generally? Thank you. Councillor Duff.
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just really pleased that we've had such good feedback from the community. Most times when you put out a corporate plan, people just think it's you know, just a boring document. They couldn't be bothered, but there's been a lot of, it's been well received. I think the way the process, going out to the community and there's a whole string of ways we got it out there. The messaging was great, and I just wanted to just thank the community for the feedback. And I'm just really, I think it's a fantastic document. I think it's the best corporate plan since in my career, because I like it because it's meaty. It's not motherhood. And I think it hits the mark. So I'm very excited about moving forward with this corporate plan.
Councillors. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I just, I guess, wanted to agree with some of Councillor Duff's comments and just noting your comments earlier about meaningful community engagement, and you spoke about the IAP2 model. And I think what I've seen, this is the feedback your council has received, pages and pages and pages of it. And I'm really pleased to say that each and every one of us have done the groundwork there. It was great to go out with our senior executive team, to be at the markets, to be on the street, to be listening and talking to people. And a lot of the things that have come up, what's pretty clear for me from the conversations that we've had, that a lot of the things that have come up have in some way been incorporated in this plan, which I think is showing our community how in touch as elected representatives we are with the priorities of our community. I just wanted to note that meaningful community engagement does take planning. It takes a clear strategy to get the outcomes that we desire, and I think what we've seen here is the fruits of our labour. I agree, it's very important, but it's important that we go with a plan and that we go with an opportunity to have the honest conversation, but certainly I think the way in which we executed the consultation for this community, for this corporate plan, is demonstrated in the feedback we've received. So thank you to the team and to every single constituent, every single person living in our region who's attributed something to this plan. It was sent out far and wide, and it was great to see the emails and the conversations that we've had. And I think there's some excellent information here which will also help. If it's not included in this plan, I guess our community should rest assured that a lot of it has already been earmarked for the operational plan next year. So thank you to the team. I know I spoke very passionately about getting this document right, and I think we are setting ourselves up for the remaining years of our term. So thank you very much, and I look forward to taking this to our community.
Other councillors? No? Okay. So those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. And again, thank you, Mr. CEO, for your facilitation of such. 6.5, services provided by Rainmaker Strategic Planning at 47. I might go to you, Mr. CEO, again. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. This was come back from the request when we put through the procurement process the other day, that and the resolution was there that it the previous discussion. It was not particularly comprehensive. The services being provided at the moment sit fully within the strategic media advice, as per the bottom of the report. There may be options to work with Rainmaker in other areas down the track, but they would be requiring a separate engagement.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. Okay, the recommendation is that Council receive the services provided by Rainmaker Strategic Planning for information. Do we have a mover? Thanks, Councillor Froloff. Seconder. Thanks, Councillor Henson. Councillors wishing to speak? Councillor Shoemaker.
Just one question. So just confirming what you've just said there, CEO Mark. So any further engagement would come back with a scope, or?
Oh, depending on the value of it, but there would be a need for a consideration of a further engagement outside of the current scope. Yes. So
Okay.
Short answer, yes.
Thank you.
Other councillors? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 6.6, assignment of council portfolio representation at 48. Again, thank you, Mr. CEO.
Thanks, Mayor. So this again is just for information. It was one that we had going back a couple of months. We had the changes to economic to regional development. My reluctance is not to present a further report, but just to finalise the corporate plan to make sure that council's direction is adopted by resolution, for want of a better term. And also then, as we get into the orgs, I know we thought we might have been there by now, but just as it worked out, if we change portfolio names or readjust slightly portfolio, and then there's a nuance between now and June as far as the corporate plan, have to redo it again. It just seemed to be. So it hasn't been forgotten. It's in queue. It's sitting there. Corporate plan will come down at the end of this month, all things being equal. Org review will kick off for the next couple of months, and then portfolios will be aligned in accordance with the corporate plan direction.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. recommendation, Council receives the update report, Council portfolio representation for information, and presents a further report to the June Executive and Finance and Corporate Standing Committee. Do we have a mover? Thanks, Councillor Froloff. Seconder, thanks, Councillor Duff. Speakers? No. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Council, committee, I'm suggesting we want to keep rolling forward into regional development, or do you want to stop for a morning tea break? You'd like to stop for a break? Okay. So I'll move that we adjourn for morning tea. Do we have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Froloff. Those in favour? Carried. Meeting now adjourned 10:34 a.m. and resume at 10:50 a.m. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. We'll now, on our move that we open the meeting at 10:55 a.m. Do we have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Duff. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Meeting reopened. Okay, on to 7.1, Regional Development Portfolio Report, and I'll invite Councillor Shoemaker to present that. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a great pleasure to present this month's Regional Development Report. This council, we believe the South Burnett will be the next growth story. This past month's efforts have focused on refining the draft 2026 Regional Development Strategy for adoption by council at the next general meeting. This process has involved meetings between this council's Wide Bay Regional Plan Subcommittee members and representatives from BAIDO and the Department of State Development, Infrastructure, Local Government and Planning. Together, we have worked to feed in the threads of the many conversations this team has had over these past 12 months about supporting and enabling growth of our region. The Regional Development Strategy will be a living document that will continue to evolve over time. The delivery and tracking of its performance will be underpinned by a regional work plan and supported by Council's leadership, facilitation and advocacy. My fellow councillors, you have received a draft copy of the 2026 Regional Development Strategy here on your tables today for comment and discussion as per the agenda item at today's Standing Committee meeting. Councillors, you've also been provided with a draft sample copy of the level of detail that may be included in our regional work plan. The purpose of this document is to demonstrate to Council the journey that we are on and acknowledge that while the adoption of a strategy will be a great step forward, there are still many more conversations to be had in the development of the regional work plan, which will turn our focus from strategy to driving outcomes. It is envisaged this regional work plan will articulate the actions Council will take to assist key stakeholders and our region to deliver on the aspirations of the strategy. I welcome my fellow councillors' further feedback, which can be discussed today for inclusion in the final strategy document that will be tabled at the next general meeting for public consultation and release. We all agree our role as a council is to provide an environment conducive to growth. In many ways, council is an enabler, and as a team, we know that to grow our region, we must work together across our portfolios and divisions with a regional mindset and a focus on the best interests of the communities we serve. In my view, growing our region requires genuine collaboration and listening. As leaders, we all have a role to play, and these roles will become clearer once the strategy has been adopted and we turn our minds to developing the regional work plan, a plan that will help us to achieve our goals. While we must be realistic in setting and achieving our short-term priorities over this term of council, I equally encourage council to be bold and audacious as we look to those long-term opportunities. The diversification of existing industries and exploration into those emerging industries such as renewable energy, horticulture, manufacturing, agri-tech, recycling and resource recovery, along with models such as creating a circular economy and being investment ready, are just a few examples of opportunities we as a council see worthy of concentrated effort. In some cases, we understand we may not be the leader. Our role in regional development is largely one that may see us facilitate, enable, empower, encourage and support. Our role will be about removing the red tape and the obstacles to growth, and it will be involve being at the table and being strategic in sustaining what we have and advocating for more. Using our voice, thinking big, and at times drawing in learnings from outside our region, while being courageous as we knock on doors, as we tell our story, and we keep telling our story until we get the outcomes we desire. Our partnerships with our neighbouring councils are important, and our ability to seek cross-regional support and both state and federal collaboration will be key. The purpose of this strategy is to help us to focus on the things that we know matter most. We each know we can't possibly be everything to everyone, and with that, we can't please absolutely everyone, despite our many efforts. I believe what we should aim for is respect. Respect in understanding our roles and our stakeholders' shared goals of growth, and doing all we can to work together. We each know our region is home to some incredible people who are doing incredible things, and this council's desire is to stand with them and together forge our future. While as a council we are supportive of industry and jobs, we know that housing availability, water security, connectivity, and a lack of available workforce are examples of some of the current inhibitors to growth in our region. Now is the time we as a council turn our minds to what we can do about these challenges. As detailed in the draft strategy, the South Burnett is an economy in transition from primarily commodity-based agricultural production to substantial and growing levels of processing and manufacturing being carried out in our region. Equally, the trends over the past 5 years demonstrate increased investments with a stable workforce. Our advantageous regional location, enhanced by cost-effective access to available industrial land, commercial opportunities, and available workforce, are just a few of the drivers of growth that we are experiencing. What I have discussed is only a snapshot of some of the areas of economic performance of our region that has informed our 3 key strategic enablers that will provide the high-level direction for the regional development strategy. The enablers I will introduce today are the enablers this council believes we should be reaching for. These are the enablers that will help us to maximise the opportunities and address the issues and challenges in our region. The enablers that underpin our strategy are: Enabler 1, the South Burnett has appropriate infrastructure to support industry, investment and livability. Enabler 2, Council delivers streamlined investment support and promotes well-planned growth. And Enabler 3, Council attracts investment, growing the economy. I look forward to sharing more conversations about these enablers and the draft strategy with you and our community in the following consultation period. In closing, I'd like to quote our CEO, who reminded us only this past week of the words of Winston Churchill. "You will never reach your destination if you stop and throw stones at every dog that barks." In reflection, these words have made me think about the things that we each share, the one thing that often distracts us and at times blinds us from the bigger picture. I know the 7 of us together as a team, along with our staff, our residents and communities, have all been victim to this. It's the love and the passion we share for our beautiful region. Sometimes we are so driven and so passionate that we aren't looking far enough ahead. I know we all equally want to know that our children and our grandchildren will have a future here in the South Burnett, that they too will be able to continue the work that our residents have dedicated their lives to. And I know that the regional development strategy is one of the tools that can steer our passion and our love for the region and help to drive a thriving future for all. So South Burnett, there are some exciting prospects on the horizon. There is much more work to be done, but together I know we will get there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that my report be accepted.
Thanks, councillor. Do we have a seconder? Thanks, councillor Henson. Questions, comments, councillors? Report. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to congratulate Councillor Shoemaker actually on regional development strategy and all that. I've had a look through that, and it's a very good document to start. It's only a draft document, but I think there's a hell of a lot of good stuff in there to start with. So I look forward to, as your assistant on that regional development group, councillor, moving forward with the rest of the council to put together a significant strategy. So congratulations on that. Well done.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Okay, anyone else? Councillor Duff?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to endorse what Councillor Jones has said, and yeah, I love your passion and commitment. Just wanted to ask, and I asked the question at your last portfolio update, was about Visit South Burnett, and where, so I know tourism is in your portfolio, and I just wondered what's happening in that space, because council has invested a significant amount of money into Visit South Burnett, and I would like to, I would hope that into the future we could have regular updates as to where that's sitting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Duff. Would it be okay if CEO Mark spoke to that?
I'd be happy to. In answer to your question, Councillor, it's the same answer. They have been formally, by email, so formally. They've been written to and invited to come along and present to Council in April. I think it was the 12th of April. I'll stand correct on the date, but mid-April, I again sent their president an email requesting that they let us know when they're able to meet with us. We are yet to hear that date, so we've got 9 days left in the month, and so come the 1st of May, if we haven't had any formal response, there'll be probably another letter of a much more detailed nature going to them. So the first opportunity was for them to present this month as would be appropriate, and that's been followed up, and so we're awaiting their reply.
Sorry, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a supplementary question. Just do you sit on that committee? Do you attend their meetings?
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Yes, so just backing up CEO Mark's comments, we have written to Visit South Burnett, and this council is very supportive of industry-led tourism outcomes. So I absolutely hear your frustration and share similar frustration. I really do want to continue. I think we need to be working together, and it concerns me that we have not received a response. Furthermore, to your comments in relation to do I attend committee meetings? The resolution that council passed and our request was that I would be invited to attend those meetings. I've not received an invitation to any committee meetings, despite having a number of conversations asking that their committee that I am invited only as an observer, not as a participant, but certainly as an observer, because I'm very mindful of the relationship council holds with our local tourism operator, and I really do want to be at the table and helping them as we forge our tourism strategy forward. So I'm equally concerned that I haven't received an update, I haven't received an invitation, and I'm equally very mindful that at some point this council, our budget workshop is yet to be held for the economic development area, which is part of executive services that CEO Mark administers for council. I am worried because we haven't had an update. Definitely tried to reach out and tried to get a response, and I'm very mindful that we are going into those conversations. So we'll continue to work on that. I have had a number of conversations with tourism operators in the region who equally are looking forward to an update from Visit South Burnett, and I've also had a number of members who have, there's been no community meeting or anything from Visit South Burnett for some time. So I understand there's a lot of work to be done, and I agree this council is very passionate about trying to work together and collaborate in that space, because we absolutely see value in industry-led outcomes, and we want to be at the table with industry. So I feel CEO Mark and the team, we have been doing what we can, but we are waiting, and we are trying to be very patient. But my patience is probably wearing thin.
Thank you.
Right, well, other councillors? If not, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Item 7.2 is the Regional Development and Tourism Monthly Update at 53. Mr. CEO, it's pretty well as presented, I'd imagine. Okay, so we've got it there, councillors. Move that be received. Do we have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Froloff over there. Councillors, any questions in relation to the report? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge in the report, we had a farewell to some of our volunteers. The Visitor Information Centres said farewell to long-serving volunteers this month, Max and Diana Ellis, who had been working in our Visitor Information Centres for the past 13 years, Linda Schofield, Mary Oakley, Sharon Joslin, Brenda Collier and Carmen Levitt. I'd just like to take an opportunity to thank those people, those local residents, for their contributions to tourism outcomes and certainly to our visitor information centres, and wish them well. I'd also just like to acknowledge and bring to Council's attention, that we had tried hard. Some of the feedback from the volunteer Christmas party that we had last year was the importance of volunteer for meals, and particularly taking the people who are selling our region to our local tourists out and about to have a look at what all the things we've got to offer. And I know they're days that our volunteers really enjoy and they're very important. Unfortunately, with COVID, that was a very challenging thing to do last year. And we have attempted, I'd like to acknowledge the work that Stacey and Sam have no doubt put into putting a date together on Wednesday the 31st of March for one of those for meals, and unfortunately with the lockdown that had to be rescheduled. So there's the real issue. We really absolutely need more volunteers in our visitor information centres, and I certainly put the challenge out there to our local tourism industry. It would be fabulous to have the people with skin in the game at the table helping to welcome tourists to our region. Council has those doors open on those facilities. They are incredible facilities, the information available, the people there, there's a real buzz about it. And I guess I would really encourage people to seriously think about how they could be a part of selling our region to our local tourists. We can all sit back and complain that the doors aren't open, but unless we're vested and we're there and turning up and doing the hard work, it's not going to happen. And quite frankly, 13 years of support, that's huge, absolutely huge. And we need more people. We need tourism operators, people with skin in the game. Actually, our visitor information centres are so important to you. We need your help. Otherwise, I really seriously am concerned about our future capacity to keep operating all centres. We are so heavily reliant on our volunteers, and I know our team does all they can to support them, but certainly I encourage the tourism industry. These centres are there, they're helping to promote our region and promoting all of the wonderful things you do, and I'd certainly love to see more people sign up to be volunteers to sell our region and our story.
Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors? Okay, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 7.4 is invitation to participate in a cross-regional... Oh, sorry. Yep, sorry. 7.3. Thanks, Lynelle. Review of previous drafts of the Regional Development Strategy at 60. Is that yours, Mr. CEO, to lead us in on that? Thank you.
Well, it's really the councillors, but I would just acknowledge and very much appreciate Councillor Shoemaker his drive to get this done, and actually also I would just a big shout out to the Department of State Development. They have just been brilliant in this. So these have been big old jobs with the corporate plan, and these are some of the big rocks, Mr. Mayor, that we talk about, and involvement and driving into the future regional plan for the area. But yeah, it's a work in progress and coming to the general, and I'll just hand over to the councillor. But I just must acknowledge DSD for the work and support they've done.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd also like to acknowledge Tracy Wilson in the Executive Services team, who's put in enormous amount of effort into this, into these drafts. And I'd also like to acknowledge the Baito representatives. So I have with the CEO, we've had some conversations with the Mayor, put this through. We've all been involved in workshops with the Department of State Development over the past 12 months, looking at the previous drafts of the strategy. I honestly think this is a great start. I think there are some in the supporting information, like I do encourage you, please go through and read this document carefully. And if you have any feedback, please email it in or don't hesitate to pick up the phone. I think it's a great start. It's by no means the end. And you'll see at the end, there is a regional work plan that I spoke about in my portfolio report. This has just been put together as a sample, but I guess that's really where the rubber hits the road. And, you know, that will be a number of workshops with this council to finalise that work plan. But I think the strategy in itself, we need a strategy so that we can get to work. And I think this is a great start. It's by no means perfect. It will be a living document, and you know, we will review this actively. It's my goal that we take this to the community after the general meeting for consultation and have some conversations with industry and whoever else would like to contribute. Certainly I'm very mindful of the scrutiny previous strategies have faced, and I want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success. So all feedback will be encouraged. Please do submit it. And I guess I didn't want to include the draft in the agenda today because I wanted to give you guys, our council team, plenty of time to review the document and decide whether there's anything you'd like to see before we take it to the community. So happy to have that discussion now, Mr. Mayor, or if you'd like to compile your feedback and send it in, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, look, it's an impressive-looking document to start with, so well done, and to you and CEO and Executive Services team. I know there was quite an amount of community interest in our economic development services and department through the last election. And I know in the first week of the term, I was asked a question by media, are there going to be KPIs set and reported upon publicly? So just in response to that, are there KPIs in this document, or are we intending to bring KPIs into this document at some stage that we can monitor our performance against as a council in facilitating and growing our economy?
Yes, certainly, Mr. Mayor. I absolutely agree there does need to be KPIs. My first intention was to set the strategy, and then as you will see in the back, the sample of the regional work plan, that is where I see this council setting our KPIs. And we as a council have not yet had those conversations, and I didn't feel it was appropriate for myself to set them by myself. My first priority was let's set the strategy, let's get the tone right, and I've largely based that on the feedback that we've received from the corporate plan. I've based that on the many conversations we have had around our region, what we'd like to see. We all identify, you know, there are opportunities in manufacturing. You know, the Prime Minister's just announced a $500 million stimulus package, or I guess fund to support renewable energies in the energy sector. You know, there are some incredible things happening around us, and I really think we need a strategy so that we can start to set the plan as to how we're going to, I guess, achieve the outcomes we desire. So KPIs, you know, I rabbit on about KPIs all the time. That will be a core focus of mine, and that will be a part of the regional work plan that we as a council will need to work on once we adopt the strategy. I've just included a sample just to give you a bit of an idea of how I see that playing out, and I guess I've looked far and wide at other councils' regional development strategies, frameworks, and been led and guided by the support of the Department of State Development in that sense as well.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Look forward to having those discussions and attaching some KPIs into that regional work plan so that we can provide appropriate levels of accountability back to the community for their investment in this space. Thank you. Other councillors, any comments at this stage? Otherwise, we've got the recommendation there. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Jones, thank you. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Thank you all. Carried unanimously. Okay, on to 7.4, invitation to participate in a cross-regional food tourism opportunity at 61. Mr CEO, did you want to lead us in on that one? Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. This is one of those opportunities that comes along, and certainly looking at collaboration with a range of different tourism partners. We had an off-the-cuff, well, not off-the-cuff, an approach from Fraser Coast Tourism. They had a spare spot. Port Douglas, Bowen, Rockhampton, Capricorn, Bundaberg, Harvey Bay had secured a deal with Seven Queensland as far as the food tourism. They had made overtures out to Sunpork and local food producers for Kingaroy, and would we want to participate? So we nabbed it basically. So reassessing but we can cater for it in the current budget. We're just moving some of the operational spend around. As part of the previous contact earlier in the month with VSB, the one they did respond to, they would be interested in putting $2,000 toward it, but it needed to be confirmed by their board. Now, we haven't had an answer back on that, but in any which case, this fits into our drive market, particularly with Channel 7, with the Brisbane Sunshine Coast and everything else, and for want of continuing, they will do Fraser Coast Tourism, and the Channel 7 people will organise, so it won't actually take much in the way of human resources for us, and it will, given it will be a 5 series, we would be able to then utilise the broadcast as well going forward down the track, as well as getting, particularly for the coming winter and summer, caravanners, people interested in the region, Bacon Fest coming up, and a range of Avocado Festival, Blackbutt. Yeah, it just ticked all the boxes for us to get something out into the marketplace fairly quickly.
Thanks very much for that lead-in, Mr CEO, and looks like it's a great initiative. So the recommendation is that the invitation to participate in the cross-regional food tourism opportunity report be received for information. Do we have a mover? Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Seconder, thanks, Councillor Froloff. Any questions on that, councillors? Other than obviously to make the observation that CEO's been quick to jump on this opportunity, so well done, Mr CEO, in progressing that. Great to see that we're working with some of our other partner councils, other partners in Wide Bay, with Bundaberg, us and Harvey Bay, all being part of that program along with those 3 central and northern regions, and look forward to seeing our region promoted on Channel 7. What a great initiative for that drive market that's growing so rapidly across regional southern Queensland. Okay, so we've got that there. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okie doke. So, councillors, 7.5 is Opera Queensland Regional Tour 2021 at 66. I know this is something that Councillor Potter is very passionate about, but in her absence, Mr CEO, are you happy just to give us a bit of an intro on that one as well?
Councillor Potter asks that we present this. The Opera Committee, again, the cost is not extensive, and we can fold it into, we can make, we'll fit it without adding extra. There is, similar to the fishing festival of dams concept, is once council resolves to accept it by resolution, so Opera Queensland would like that confirmation, is that we will get ticket sales back, so the full cost won't be $6,000, so we'll actually derive an income out of it, so worst case scenario is $6,000, hence we're very comfortable of being able to incorporate this into current budgets without increasing a budget anyway. Wonderful opportunity. It is in the operational plan. We had another play to be brought to the region, and it was unable to proceed this year in our area, but this one actually fits into the current operational plan as far as one of the directions that we have. So we're quite happy to accept the challenge, and it's an opera mixed with country music, as in Are You Lonesome Tonight? So it would be an interesting concept to see how it goes. Should be good.
Thanks, Mr CEO, and in the report here it just outlines that that Are You Lonesome Tonight planned to be performed by Opera Queensland in Kingaroy on the 15th of June 2021 is the proposed date, and it will be the most extensive regional tour in their 40-year history. Visiting 30 communities, travelling almost 7,000 kilometres. The tour takes over regional Queensland with a celebration of opera and country music throughout May and June. A cast of young Australian singers, including Irina Lisiak, Marcus Corowa and Jonathan Hickey. Are You Lonesome Tonight features arias and songs by composers such as Puccini, Verdi, Slim Dusty and Dolly Parton, to name just a few. Come in your jeans and boots or your tuxedos and ball gowns. That is opera. This is opera that is diverse, accessible and exciting. I'm very excited about this, and I'm happy on behalf of Councillor Potter to move that South Bennett Regional Council, that the committee recommends to Council that South Bennett Regional Council accepts the proposal from Opera Queensland for the performance of Are You Lonesome Tonight in Kingaroy on the 15th of June 2021. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? No. Okay, those in favour. Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to acknowledge the work Councillor Potter has done behind the scenes to bring this to the table. I think it is an exceptional outcome, and it certainly shows our desire to really improve our arts and cultural space and give opportunities for our local residents to experience those. I'm very excited about the presentation and look forward to seeing this council in their ball gowns and boots. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'm really keen on this as well. I think it's what's great about it, it's so diverse, and so we've got, you know, very much, we're an agricultural region, and so there's not much. We sometimes feel that the rural people miss out, but this is an opportunity for the rural people and all of our town people to get together. And I think, given the, you know, we've been through COVID, we've been through, you know, we're in the middle of still drought. It's something like this for minimal cost is really, it makes our region livable, which is what we're trying to do. So I'm really keen to support this.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks. Just a question to you, Mr CEO. Is this proposed to be held in the hall, Kingaroy Town Hall?
Yeah, I haven't finalised the venue, but yeah, I would think it would be the hall or somewhere similar.
That it may. I'm just, you know, do we need is 6,000 enough? Do we need to? Is that going to be, if we need to spend 3 or 4, we're going to be able to? Because I'm happy to. The reason I'm asking these questions is I'm happy to extend the budget if we need.
Oh yeah, no, just the 6,000. With the ticket sales and things like that, I'd be comfortable with what we've got.
Happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Okay, councillors, those in favour? Carry unanimously. Thanks, everybody. Okay, I have some questions on notice at 8.1, Mr CEO. 67, thank you.
Just the reports there, Mr Mayor, as far as we think we've got them all. Question and answers presented, and happy to take questions on questions if there is any questions on questions. If not, the questions on questions will be noted for information.
Thanks, Mr CEO. That sounds very complicated, doesn't it? Questions on questions on and questions on those questions. Councillors that put the questions forward, do you want any further clarification on that? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
No, Mr Mayor, I just wanted to thank and acknowledge the work that's gone into providing a summary around those landfills and quarries calculations. I really do find that quite interesting that we are preparing for those rehabilitation expenses. And thank you, Kerry, and your team for the work that's gone into explaining that to Council. It's a really great summary of just how important those provisions are. So thank you.
Right, okay. So do we need to move that be received? Move it for that. Thank you. Is there anybody? Move it be received. Yep, Councillor Duff, thank you. Seconded, thanks, Councillor Froloff. Those in favour? Accepted, thank you all. Carried unanimously. Okay, now move that, in accordance with the recommendation, Council considers the confidential reports listed below in a meeting closed to the public in accordance with Section 254J of the Local Government Regulation 2012, 9.1, Release of Restricted Cash, Developer Contributions, and 9.2, Request to Waive Disputed Rates, Debt Recovery, Legal Costs and Interest, Assessment Number 14376, 5 zeros dash 3 zeros. Not sure how you pronounce that, but anyway, it's a long number. Okay, so I'll hereby move that. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. We'll now close the meeting and go into confidential section at 11:30 a.m. Thank you. Okay, welcome back everybody to the committee meeting. First item is 9.1, release of restricted cash, developer contributions. We'll note that Councillor Shoemaker declared a conflict of interest and left the room and stayed a while the matter was discussed and has continued to do so. The recommendation is that the committee recommends to council that the request from the deceased estate for release of restricted cash due to the refund of water supply headworks under assessment 11412000000-000, a proposed subdivision, developer contribution, which has not commenced, be approved. Do we have a mover? Thanks, Councillor Duff. Seconder, thanks, Councillor Henson. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thanks, General Manager. We'll bring Councillor Shoemaker back now for item 9.2. Recommendation is that the committee recommends to council that South Bennett Regional Council does not accede to the request to waive the disputed legal costs and interest for assessment number 14376-00000-000. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Seconder, thanks, Councillor Froloff. Okay, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. That concludes the committee meeting. Thank you all for your attendance today. I'll now declare the meeting closed at 11:44 a.m. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.